What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Next Billion podcast. We again today have a very special guest. We're back in the Rotunda at Capitol Hill, and our special guest today is Minister Udui. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast today, Minister.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here and to talk about some of the opportunities we have here in Palau and Palau in general. I'm very thankful that I have the opportunity to share that with you today.
Absolutely. And so you're the Minister of Finance, right? So you're the numbers guy. So I think maybe we can talk a little bit about the numbers. You know, crypto people, they love hearing numbers. That's all they do all day. So maybe frame Palau as a country and an economy. A lot of tourism here. I walk down the street, everything is geared toward tourism. Is this 80% of the economy, 90%? And what happened during COVID, that's a money source essentially for the country. So maybe just a bit of perspective there for everyone out there.
Sure. Tourism is our bread and butter. Depending on how you measure it, you could say it's about 60% of our economy. So when we closed our borders because of the pandemic, we basically lost our economy. Fortunately, we have friends like the United States, Japan, Taiwan, who help make up for that loss by providing us with unemployment assistance for our people. We also borrowed money to keep people comfortable during this period of such unrest, It was very unnerving. You talk about cabin fever. It was very much island fever, where even if you wanted to, you couldn't leave.
Yeah.
So that was very unnerving for a lot of people, plus the fear of contracting some major illness in a small community with limited resources to treat illnesses. Again, our partners like the United States provide us with the vaccine, also with medicines for those people who are more vulnerable, and assistance, just advice through the CDC, telling us how we should approach the pandemic and how to keep ourselves safe and how to mitigate some of the challenges that come with it, including limited air travel that was allowed for bringing experts in to continue to maintain the generators or other projects that require outside expertise.
Well, that's the thing. The economy would rely a lot on being a small island nation in the Pacific. It's not exactly well connected to the rest of the world, like one of the big hubs or anything. So there would be a lot of international trade, right? There would be a lot of either businesses or experts or people that are required to come in and out from wherever they are in the world.
Yes.
And that would have all, I guess, gone to zero, right?
Yes, exactly. And you really find out how linked you are to the rest of the world when something like this happens. And you get to see, like, for instance, tourism, how much of this you really rely upon.
Yeah.
But other things like how do you bring cash in for the ATM machines?
Yes.
Those things become a stark reality that you have to deal with. Yeah. So tourism is our bread and butter. We rely heavily on imports in this economy. While we do have a very pristine environment here, the primary reason why people visit, clean air, clean water, a lot of greenery, a lot of indigenous life here that some are only found here. Coral, for instance, which could be a solution for cancer, something that we would rather find out before we lose it and lose the opportunity. So there are a lot of things here, I think, that provide value. Being a small country, a small island nation, about the size of Singapore before it started reclaiming land, is a challenge. Small population of only about 20,000 people, and bringing in tourists almost 10 times that amount. Requires a certain system to support that kind of economy. Even though we have very natural environment and large ocean resource, we don't have a lot of food for a tourism industry that's 10 times our population, so we import a lot, and a lot of that is food. Most of it is energy. It's diesel that helps power the power plants that we rely on, and we are trying to move away from that because it's also the biggest source of outflow for our finance. So it does also change, especially recently, in terms of the pricing. Challenges with the pandemic and with the war in the Ukraine.
Went up and everything like that.
Yeah, very big impact for a country whose incomes don't really change. So it's a big initiative that we have, and we're known as environmental champions, having reserved 80% of our ocean resources against fishing. We're also trying to move into renewable energy in a very big way, and that's to protect our economy as well as become more self-sufficient.
Yeah.
So these are kind of the things that are happening nowadays in Palau, and what we especially I spend a lot of my time on thinking about at night and during the day.
Amazing. Well, and I think that's a really good point, is that even if Palau wanted to, say, bring in 1 million tourists, you literally couldn't support that, right? Like there's just not enough accommodation or diesel or electricity or whatever it is, right? Like, so there is sort of a maximum cap for the economy, and it's about, I guess, trying to balance, like, what's the optimal mix of that, right? Is it high value travel, or, is it budget, backpackers? Like, what's the optimal mix for Palau? And I guess with tourism being so dependent, I guess we can talk about how do we scale Palau and how do we, grow that economy. But I'm curious, firstly, how you got to where you are today as Minister of Finance. What was your journey to get to where you are today? And were you previously working with the government or in private sector or elsewhere in Palau, outside of Palau? How did it go?
I actually grew up outside of Palau. I was born in Saipan in the Marianas, and grew up outside of Palau. Went to school in Saipan, and went to high school in Hawaii. Went to the United States for a lot of my college years. But I returned back to Palau in the mid 80s.
Right.
And started working here with my dad, who was a lawyer. And one of the businesses that I was involved in when I was here was in real estate. So I decided finance was something I enjoyed doing. So I went back to school, finished up. First job after college was in the finance ministry as a chief of budget. After a few years in government, I went to the private sector in banking primarily, then into real estate, just how I started.
Yeah.
After that, this administration took office. The president was looking for something in particular, direction that he wanted for the finance ministry, which included fintech. And he thought I could do the job, so he asked me to consider the position. Of course, all ministers here are appointed and confirmed by Congress, and I was able to go through that gauntlet.
Right.
And became the Minister of Finance.
Amazing. Well, I think that's we were talking just previously off camera about fintech and, a bit of a passion that you have there. Is that how Palau scales the economy into the future? Because if there is a max limit to how many people can physically be here, it seems like Palau needs to increase its productivity via other means, which maybe is in the digital realms and, on the internet. What are your thoughts there? What are some of the either initiatives or just the general sort of way that you're thinking about it to grow the economy of Palau?
Yeah, I think, like you said, we do have this natural limit on the number of tourists we can physically bring here. So what are the options? We do have very fast internet here. It's the killer of distance, right? Technology and communications. So we've been very fortunate to get support to build up very fast speeds in Palau, connecting Palau to the world.
And there's a new undersea cable or something coming soon, and fiber to the home and stuff like that?
Yes, we do have already our first submarine fiber optic cable has been connected to Asia, and we're probably land the second cable somewhere in 2025. Of course, cable to the island is one thing, but you got to get that speed connected to each household, each business.
Yep.
And that's something, again, our partners in the United States are helping us with. It's an active project right now that they're working on. So that'll give us a lot of potential. So tourism doesn't necessarily need to be in person. So we are looking at several initiatives involving fintech, but not just as an alternative to tourism, but also a way to improve living conditions here and allow people more access to finance and transaction that they otherwise wouldn't have if this technology wasn't available. So it's an area that we're exploring. We think has a huge amount of potential, but is very much controlled by larger countries. And we think that our small size will give us an advantage to navigate those waters and be able to come up with a very viable and profitable solution.
And what are some of the problems that people would face? So you mentioned maybe technology is an enabler for people, but does that mean that just sending money in and out of Palau is difficult? Or is it mortgages or getting a loan? Or what are some of the things that you think everyday people could utilize with the use of, say, fintech stuff to make their lives better?
I think all of the things that you mentioned,
right.
Definitely. I guess it's the perspective of what we're dealing with here. Again, our economy is capped, right? Unless we uncap it by using something that involves a global perspective rather than a regional or even domestic type of thinking. So, I mean, the savings that you get by not having to travel on a boat to come and pay your taxes is a very good example that I use. So that enabling infrastructure through fintech is going to help a business spend more time making business rather than paying taxes.
Right.
So things like e-government is a big opportunity for our economy. We're looking at, of course, the obvious things like telemedicine, education, but there's always some sort of financial component to it. We're looking at e-books for the students, but also managing student performance and teacher work online.
Yep.
Here we do have free education, but there are probably things that we would like to charge for that allow for a better experience. So while you're in Palau, you can take advantage of what's available around the world and have a world-class education. Some of those things that you'll need to pay for and can be enabled by fintech.
Yeah.
So these are just small examples of opportunities that could be very obvious in our small setting. And it also gives us another industry. One thing that I tell people is having an industry that locals don't participate in is not really good for the country. And finance, if you were to walk into our government office here or walk into any of our banks, you'll see that most of the people working there are Palauans.
Yep.
So Palauans have aptitude for finance, at least in the banking world.
Yep.
And that is a big area for fintech. Most banks are working on some sort of digital experience, right? Online banking and whatnot.
Yeah.
But we can take that further. And we already know from this current experience that we may have aptitude for a little bit larger and maybe something in crypto and stablecoin and other types of fintech opportunities that we could be involved in and drive and own and benefit from. So it's very exciting to think about the prospects.
And that's it. One of the things in that area is identity, right? And we've got the Web3 identity program, the digital ID, the digital residency. I'm gladly a member. It's great.
Thank you.
A lot of other people are as well. We've got Vitalik, Tim Draper, a bunch of other sort of luminaries. So I guess this is an example of trying to build beyond Palau, right? And it's like, I think we've over 5,000 signups now, people that have paid money. And I guess for Palau, like this is a revenue driver, right? And the revenue essentially at the end of the day goes into improving people's lives and so on, but also the natural environment. You mentioned before 80%, marine protected reserves. So is this, I guess, the end goal of all of these different things? It's kind of like, we need the tech to, yes, it can maybe improve incomes and that sort of stuff, but ultimately it's about an economic benefit for the environment and keeping Palau, pristine and nice, right? Like, I guess there would be political backlash if, 1 million people turn up tomorrow, right? So this is maybe a way to scale it without 1 million people turning up tomorrow.
Yes, exactly. And I think it also brings opportunity. It doesn't have to compete with our physical visitors here. And for instance, there was an idea that I mentioned once and I thought it makes a lot of sense, being able to sign in to a service and visit the site remotely.
Yep.
Or have that as an interim visit to the country online.
Yeah. A live feed on a drone or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
So it does protect our environment and we do need to protect our environment. It's very fragile. We consider ourselves environmental champions in the Pacific, and a lot of the smaller countries are advocating for, keeping the global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. These are things that we live. When climate crisis hits, it's going to hit us first.
Yeah.
So you'll get to see what happens live, right, basically with us. And it's not a good thing, I tell you.
Yeah.
So we need to do our part and be advocates to help everyone join the movement. And it's another reason why technology and the internet and fintech could be another way of sharing that message as being small, but being leaders in this very big space of climate change. And I think that's something else that could be part of the messaging, when we're doing fintech and trying to preserve this very pristine environment that we've been charged with protecting for the world.
Absolutely. And we talk about a lot of these different things, but what are you most excited about, I guess, for, say, the rest of this year? I always ask this question at the end of podcasts because I'm curious from our guests, to hear about what have they got on the cards. What are you spending every day and night, thinking about now? I know we had the presidential address yesterday as well, a lot of different initiatives spoken about and these sorts of things, a lot of discussion about a lot of those different initiatives, right? Some good, some bad, but that's how it goes, right? But what are you most excited about over the next year of things which you're like personally interested in driving? And fintech definitely one of them. But what else is going on in Palau?
Well, we have several reforms that we're looking at and several developmental projects. My ministry is taking the lead, and these are structural changes. For instance, the tax reform, moving to a modern tax system, one that's built for our type of economy as it is today, and what we see will be in the future. Is a major initiative, and we have to support that. This is the year that we started this reform, and it has significant impacts throughout the economy. For instance, a new reform includes a business profit tax, meaning we have not had a business profit tax, and we haven't emphasized business financial statements and financial analysis. So it's been difficult for our banks to lend to businesses. So you can see how this fits in again with fintech and how we can do taxation and business financial statements, and the banks find out who are the better clients, and we can help endorse businesses to get loans to improve the experience here for tourism and increase the revenue potential for the economy. So that's one. That's a big one. Change is hard for any community, and a small community, it's even harder. So we spend a lot of our time talking about why this is a good thing, why should we stick with it. And then, technology is something very new, and we haven't really had a lot of time to prep for it. So there are some challenges that we have to watch out for. A lot of predators out there that people want to take advantage of you. Ransomware, hackers, and it's something that's very advanced, something that we're not there yet. And
not everyone can be experts on that on day one, right? So
so we have to, and it takes intelligence and working with partners and sharing information on what's going on, how intrusions are being done, and we're in the very strong region economically, but at the same time, a very precarious region for security-wise, and our affiliation with the United States does attract some bad actors to try to do some things here over the internet that are not nice. And a small country like this recovering from those kind of attacks, which we've actually experienced, is a challenge. So we're trying to build fintech, but we're also trying to build the security side and make sure that we're protected or able to recover when we are attacked. And that is another part of the fintech initiatives that my ministry is also involved in.
Cybersecurity stuff.
Cybersecurity, not a small thing. But to have, I remember one of these people that advised us on how to make things better in Palau, said you got to really make sure that you create a safe environment. And that also includes in cyberspace, that you have that safe environment to have this foundation for people to grow. And if we're looking at this as a potential industry for especially our entrepreneurs, local people, digital nomads, then we have to be able to provide that environment for them. So it is a big area that we're working on. Fortunately, we do have a lot of friends that are giving us a lot of advice and partnering with us on trying to make sure that we're safe. U.S. military is increasing their presence here, and it's important to them with this high-speed submarine fiber optic cable, that hardware, the technology involved, so that they can use it for their own purposes and increase the utilization and the economic viability of these innovations to our market. So those are two very big things that I work on, aside from some normal business improvement I get through the World Bank or IMF or Asian Development Bank. We are still not out of trouble with the pandemic. Our economy is...
Various debts incurred for
a lot of
organization through that.
Yes, a lot of debt. And we graduated during the pandemic to a high income classification, meaning people don't want to give us grants and they don't want to give us low interest rate loans. So it makes my job a little bit more challenging to try to keep the budget at the level that supports the basic minimal level of operations of government. So that is something I do spend a lot of time on. I think we're able to face those challenges and take the lead on projects like the fintech initiatives. And I think our experience is that we're doing pretty well. We're not overly optimistic, and we manage things prudently from a risk management perspective. And the results, I think, are very obvious.
I mean, this is something that I've heard from a lot of people now, is like the focus here seems to be very much be that the environment is certainly one thing, and that's what Palau's all about. But also everyone gets that Palau needs to be a global place as well to actually, that's how you can make money from, for a small island jurisdiction. And it's also, I think perhaps a good thing as well. The benefit is that it's a very small population, right? So to support a small population, you don't need that much money, but you just need to get to a point where you can make that much money, right? So I think things like the Web3 ID and stuff like that, all of that money contributes to that. So, and if anyone wants to contribute in any way in either their time or expertise, or companies out there that are thinking of doing something in Palau, where should they go? Should they talk to the ministry? Should they just come here as a tourist and check it out first? What would be your advice?
I think it's good to get perspective of the place that you're looking at investing in. We are a very open country. We like to see a lot more people consider Palau, especially for headquarters of corporations or board retreats. Conferences here are very popular for people in the region around the world. We have a lot to show people, I think, as an example of an environmental custodian. That's a lesson in and of itself. We do have very good connectivity, so you're not disadvantaged by being here. And you can share some of that with others. So if you are interested in coming here, I mean, you can come in as a digital nomad. You can stay here for up to 210 days and do some business here, or you can come here and look more at what you might be interested in doing, maybe more in a permanent situation. You can talk directly to the president, like you did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very open to that. And you can talk to the Minister of Finance. You can talk to the Minister of Development. I think, depending on what you want to do, we're open to talking and seeing what opportunities we can help you have here. Digital residency is a good way to come in to begin.
It's the gateway. It's the entry point. So one question we have as well is what do you think people don't know about Palau, or what do you think people are missing about Palau? Is there anything that when they hear about Palau that is something that perhaps they would not have considered?
I think Palau is such a small place, even difficult to find on the map or a globe. People, I think, generally have a different impression once they visit, not what they expected,
right?
Because they didn't expect much. And I think there's more to expect when you come here. You would think for your first visit here, I would expect that it's not really what you expected.
Yes. Look, as an outsider's perspective, first time here, definitely a very small place, way more cars on the road than I thought as well, by the way. So I get the whole gasoline problem and a lot of outflows going for paying for that. I'm wondering if solar is a part of, economic growth as well. So there's that. Definitely the environment's a huge part of it. And this willingness and this openness, everyone's been very friendly here. The community's very tight. So I think everyone is looking for ways to get more out of what's already here, right? So I think, the digital world is certainly one way to do that. So my impressions are, I think everyone has the right perspective, and there's definitely some challenges, but also it's pretty exciting because in terms of investment and foreign direct investment and stuff like that, it seems like there's a lot of opportunities here. Like I was talking with Chris, our camera guy, and it was like, you walk down the street and you can see 5 business opportunities. And that was something that, coming from the outside, if anyone's interested in, even if it's just a home delivery business or warehousing or shipping or build a hotel or something like that, like you could name a list of different things, right? Which could, off the top of your head. So I think that's really cool. So I think Palau is a place that's growing and has a lot of potential, and you want to get in soon before it keeps on going, right?
Yeah.
That's my perspective. I don't know if you resonate with any of that.
I think so. And like I said, I grew up outside of Palau. And when I came in, I exactly had that same impression.
Right.
And then you stay here long enough, and then your priorities change, which is also good. But I think there are a lot of opportunities, especially for like digital nomads. It's a different business environment nowadays. It doesn't matter where you are. But certain places do offer more benefits for a business. And I'd hope that Palau would be one of those places, and we can work towards that. Using experiences and advice from people like yourself who come here and share new ideas and new experience, which we're always welcome to receive.
It seems like we met some cruise ship people that were here on a cruise ship. We came from Taiwan, so a lot of Taiwanese coming here as tourists as well. So then the thought is, like, are there Taiwanese fintech apps or something which should be here in Palau, of which they can scan a QR code and just pay for stuff, and then the money, like, maybe that's an easier way of doing payments. So look, very exciting. I think, yeah, there's a lot of potential here. So one of the things that we're doing actually after this interview is we're going to one of the mines to see the coins which were mined here, which actually, for those in the crypto world, we all know, like, this is quite a famous thing. Everyone knows about the Yap coins and stuff like that, but people don't realize that a lot of that was mined in Palau here as well. So stone money, this was a form of payment, and I'm philosophically very interested in what is money. That's what I've been thinking about ever since I got into Bitcoin. And I think once you start thinking about that, what is money? Where does it come from? What is its use case, and who creates it? And how is it created, and how is value created? Especially if you're on a remote island, like, how does the GDP of that island grow if you have the same finite amount of resources? But I guess what we're seeing here is, Yap was a pioneer in money, essentially. And then, through the years, we've grown to the existing system that we have, bank accounts and US dollars and stuff like that. And now Palau is also looking at the digital realm as well, and crypto and this sort of thing. So maybe it's a case of Palau going back to its roots and getting back to being a pioneer in money. Is that how you see it as well?
I would say that you can see it that way as well. Not only were Yapi stone money, which are very large, heavy
big, like,
pieces of rock, represent a blockchain concept where the coin doesn't really move, but the title moves. Like on a blockchain is very innovative, and it was done many years ago.
That's it.
But also that Palau traded with Yap and allowed them to come here and mine that money, and a lot of the value of the money was embedded in that experience of mining it in Palau, and whatever costs were associated with minting that stone.
Yeah.
But Palau has its own monetary system represented in some stone beads that is part of a very elaborate system of exchange that we have. So it's embedded in our society as well, the concept of money.
Yes.
And value systems, and there was some money that was used on a daily basis to buy bread, for instance. Yeah. And then there were one that settled wars, and there were some that you could buy a house with. So, there were set values depending on the money and the history of the money. The more exchange that was conducted also supported the value of that particular money, usually which most of them had their own names. So that's how you track the value of the money through the transaction chain. So, this is something that comes back to us. It's not something we have to learn.
Yeah.
Like something that we already understand.
You're open to it. And a lot of places around the world, people think of money as just, it's the thing in the bank account, and that's all they've ever thought of, right? Whereas, at least here on Palau, it's like people are open to different forms of money. There are different forms of value exchange. So, if there are new innovations in the form of value exchange, it's a pretty reasonable thing to think of, right? Whether it's the Yapese coins or the Palau beads, or, a physical note or currency, or if it's maybe crypto, something like that. So that's a really interesting, and it's actually a rarity, I think, in many populations, many countries around the world, is to have that openness, because often there's a little bit of pushback when people try these new things, right? Whereas at least you can harken back and say, hey, we literally invented a form of money over here, and we have it already embedded in our culture. So it's not a huge giant leap to think of some crypto thing, right? Yeah. And I like the point you made about the mining of the coin and that essentially giving it value. In crypto land, we have the concept of proof of work, where it's pioneered by Bitcoin, but there was a lot of work that goes into mining a Bitcoin, essentially, creating it. You've got to verify a lot of transactions, and there's work involved, right? Someone's got to do it. And a lot of people are saying, well, that's where the value comes from, essentially, is there's work involved. So at the end of the day, money is created via work. And that's a very interesting concept to think about. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Minister. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast, and we'll let you get to your appointments. Any of the links we'll put down below as well in this video. But if you want to hear more, as we heard, definitely come on down, come check it out, and check out the ID program as well. We'll put a link to that. But yeah, all the best, and I'm sure we'll be talking again soon.
Thank you again.